How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Movies of the Month, a segment where I break down everything I watched over the course of the month, so let's get right into it. First, I watched Squid Game. Dubbed in 13 languages and subtitled in another 19, Squid Game took the world by storm last month. I initially had no plans to add it to my backlog and did the best to mitigate the incessant buzz around it, but eventually I caved in and I'm actually pretty glad I did. We follow Gi-hun, a deadbeat gambler who can't seem to catch a break. He's extremely desperate and always strapped for cash, which leads him to regularly get his crap kicked in by the local loan sharks. All of a sudden, fortune seemingly finds him in the form of a stranger on the subway who invites him to a mysterious game to pay off his debts. From there, he's carted off to a remote island where hundreds of other adults in a similar financial bind compete in children's games for millions of dollars, except, if you lose, you die. Now, most of us are familiar with this Hunger Games / Maze Runner-esque setup, but Squid Game does a plethora of things to shake up this familiar premise and make it feel original. There's so much more tension and mystery surrounding the structure of the games themselves. All the workers are in these money heist jumpsuits and PlayStation masks and tag on the creepy theme that plays whenever they're summoned, and you're just as confused and on edge as the players themselves. The games themselves are super intense with tons of screaming and bloodshed. The camera never cuts away from the many kinds of gruesome deaths, which really lets the gravity of the situation sink in. Episode 2 goes in depth to the individual character backstories and the miserable socioeconomic circumstances that lead them to willingly participate in these games. It's super easy to get invested in these characters and the bonds they form with each other once we learn what they're fighting for. The investment you make in them makes certain character deaths in the later episodes completely gut-wrenching. I'm telling you, episode 6 hit me in the feels, man. All this to say, the show isn't perfect. Some of the game's outcomes are really predictable when you find out which characters are important, and there's this subplot of a cop investigating the island to try to find his missing brother that has a super unsatisfying payoff, if I can even call it that. There's a couple unnecessary twists towards the end of the season that are kinda sloppy and don't add too much to the story, and while the social commentary and critiques are usually subtle and elegant, they get extremely heavy-handed and blatant with the introduction of the VIP characters. If you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. All these characters exist to do is say what the audience should be thinking. It's really lame. But with exquisite performances, impressive cinematography, and profound social commentary, Squid Game is some of the best TV we've gotten all year. 8 out of 10, solid stuff. Then I watched No Time to Die. I binged the rest of the Daniel Craig Bond movies over the summer, and I gotta say, I think this is the best one yet. No Time to Die is the 5th and final portrayal of Daniel Craig as 007 and might just be my favorite. I'm gonna skip the pleasantries of a plot summary because this movie follows a ton of by-the-numbers Bond conventions, at least on the surface. Once again, Bond thinks he's found a way out of the game, settling down with his newly wedded wife whose name escapes me right now, when he's suddenly reminded that danger will follow him wherever he goes. Old foes dig up past trauma for both Bond and his wife as they must overcome another world-ending threat, yada yada yada. You've seen this before. This might not sound like the most gripping send-off for Daniel Craig's Bond, but believe me when I tell you, this movie is actually incredible. Daniel Craig owns the spotlight one last time as the leading man with a plan, with a lot more emotionally heavy scenes than usual to round off his performance. Rami Malek gives a chillingly fascinating depiction of the latest Bond villain, while Ralph Fiennes and Jeffrey Wright balance things out nicely as M and Felix respectively. The main show stealer, however, was Ana de Armas. Holy crap, talk about making the most of 10 minutes of screen time. She plays a bright-eyed, wide-smiling CIA agent that helps Bond infiltrate a secret operation. Her bubbly, inexperienced demeanor played perfectly off Bond's more refined, unimpressed personality, and honestly made for the most fun and entertaining sequence of the film. So much so that my biggest complaint of this movie is that she is not in it more. The action of this film is helmed masterfully by director Cary Fukunaga and cinematographer Linus Sandgren. The practical effects, minimal CGI, and on-location shooting did wonders for the immersion of each action set piece. The hand-to-hand combat encounters and gunfights are often up close and personal with little cuts, including an unbroken sequence involving a flight of stairs that had me mesmerized. Without adding spoilers, of course, the film does a good job of adding plot elements to make the stakes feel extra personal to Bond, which made for a little more compelling storyline compared to the typical world-ending affairs. Fantastic action, great performances, and a satisfyingly conclusive ending, No Time to Die was an absolute treat. 8.5 out of 10, good stuff. Then I watched Dune. One of the most anticipated movies of the year, Dune lives up to, and I'd even say exceeds, the hype. As someone unfamiliar with the source material, I was excited to take in a grandiose epic from sci-fi filmmaking Arthur Denis Villeneuve, and he did not disappoint. Dune is a work of art. It's grand, adventurous, ambitious, and exciting. The overall production design is astounding. Excellent CGI, impressive hair and makeup, captivating costumes, it's all here. The sci-fi technology used throughout the film is carefully explained and extremely practical, keeping the world feeling extremely grounded. The visuals and sound design is varied and bombastic, with a sweeping and inviting score by Hans Zimmer that never breaks the immersion. I found the cast to be equally impressive. Timothée Chalamet continues to prove himself as one of the best young stars in Hollywood, bringing a personally engrossing performance as Paul Atreides to life. He's a very conflicted character with a lot to live up to as the son of Duke Leto, played wonderfully by Oscar Isaac. They have plenty of tender scenes together that really sells their bond as father and son. The same can be said of all of Paul's mentors, played by Josh Brolin and Jason Momoa. Every member of this cast completely commits to their role and were a treasure to behold on screen. Dune's plot features a plethora of political interworkings that won't be unfamiliar to the average Star Wars fan. And while I'm usually not the biggest fan of this sort of thing, the film does a really good job of making it easy enough to follow by always showing the immediate results of whatever political arrangement or betrayal is made. This made sure the pacing never came to a standstill and it felt like something was always happening. Much of this movie is dedicated to world building instead of action, which I didn't mind because it was just done so well. Everything that happens in this movie as far as plot and character feels really meaningful, and I absolutely love that. It sets up for a sequel really nicely, and it has you crave so much more by the end. 9 out of 10, this crap is goated. Also, I watched You Season 3 and it was the most spine-tingling, intense season of television I've watched all year. 9 out of 10, good stuff, definitely check the show out. Not going into any more details, bye!